Hello fellow cinephiles, 90s Film Guru here. Thanks for joining me today. For those who are new to the channel, my name's Sean, also known as 90s Film Guru, and I started this channel to really have my say about 90s, anything 90s, especially movies and TV shows. So thanks for joining me today. Today I'm reviewing The January Man. This was directed by Norman Jewison, stars Kevin Kline, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Harvey Keitel, Alan Rickman, and including Rod Steiger in a really powerful performance. He's only in it a bit, but he's a really intense actor and he gives such gravity and intensity to one particular scene. For those who haven't seen it, it's the story of Kevin Kline's character, Nick, who ultimately was a police officer, now isn't, he's a fireman. When a string of murders start happening where women are strangled to death, the mayor of the town rather reluctantly brings Nick back, and he's there to try and solve the crime. By any means necessary. He rubs people the wrong way, but it's about trying to capture this serial strangler before it's too late. This film has never really been well received. It is a little odd in tone, completely agree with that. It just feels like they're not sure which tone to go for, because there's sort of this thriller aspect and intense moments to it, but there's also a lot of humour, and I think that also comes from Kevin Kline as well. He sort of has this particular way about him when he's in a movie, and he exudes this sort of confidence, humorous, sarcastic presence. And I think that's what orders the movie. With a different actor, it may have not felt that way. It's something that Roger Ebert talked about in his review, how it couldn't really find its tone. This kind of, it's like Susan Sarandon, Harvey Keitel, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and Rod Steiger. They all feel like they're part of a thriller film, where when Kevin Kline and Alan Rickman come into it, it kind of really feels like it's a completely different movie, much more of a humorous film. It's just kind of odd, but in its oddness is a really fascinating film. Like I said, he's what sort of shakes the movie up. Him and Alan Rickman kind of feel like Sherlock Holmes and Watson in a way, where if Watson was an artist who didn't really want to get involved in anything, and Sherlock Holmes is just like the Kevin Kline character Nick is very smart and intelligent, and he looks at things in a unique way. And there's this sort of strain between him and his brother, played by Harvey Keitel, and involving Harvey Keitel's wife that Susan Sarandon plays. There's like this sort of thing involved in that, and sort of this relationship between Nick and her that sort of fell apart, and was led to part of the reason why he wasn't on the police force anymore. But there's also mention of corruption there. Whether Nick was involved in some sort of corruption, no one really knows. But he's just such a fascinating character in the film and has real fun and adds, like I said, a lot of humour. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio I've been a big fan of. I like a lot of her movies. She didn't do a lot, but when she was in the film, she really shined. And this is definitely an example of that particular sort of role. She plays this socialite in a way, and she forms a connection with Nick. And it's a real strong bond that forms between them that helps both of them out. And she starts to get involved in his work and trying to help him work out who this strangler is, because the killer actually killed one of her friends. So it's kind of this, her involvement is to do with Nick, but also what happened to her friend, and the fact that her father is also the mayor, played by Rod Steiger. I think Alan Rickman is really good. He's unique, quirky and odd self, and he works really great alongside Kevin Kline. They have this really great banter, and you really feel there's a connection, a friendship there that's lasted a long time. And they don't really understand each other because they're both sort of a bit off kilter. I would say Nick is a kind of a genius character, and a lot of people don't know what he's talking about. And they just want a quick fix for this. They brought him in because they haven't been able to stop this killer, and they just feel like he'll end up getting someone. And then they do have a suspect, and they do feel like this is the person. But it doesn't all add up for Nick. And he has to go out on his own and to prove that the killer is still alive, and that the person they have chosen is not the right one. He has to persevere no matter what, which is kind of a testament to Nick as a character. The film is really filled with some really great moments. When we first meet Nick, and he's a fireman, and he comes out of he's in this place that's on fire, and you don't know if he's going to make it out, and he comes out, and there's a lot of humour and intensity to his performance there, and I like that. when he's sort of brought in on the case and they're giving him an office and he doesn't want it and he picks another office and he pulls all the furniture out and just has this open space, and you've got Alan Rickman's character just sort of painting on the walls. I kind of like that. That was funny. And with the burning building of him coming out, that comes back later in the film, towards the end, when he's ultimately going up against or taking on this particular killer, and how that transpires and how that sort of anchors or completely has his character come full circle in a way. There's this whole sequence of this elaborate plan where they finally found out where they think the killer's going to strike next, and how they go about sort of getting him is kind of really, starts off dramatic, but then it turns into sort of really humorous moments. It's really odd. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio sort of wearing this thing to stop the killer so they can catch him, and you know, Nick is like, once he grabs you, scream, and then I'll use this sledgehammer to get into the door, and he can't get in the door, and just what happens there. And it's kind of zany and fun, and I don't know if that really works for that particular, what they're sort of going for tonally, but I do think it's very funny. And there are moments when he takes on the killer and they have this fight down this winding staircase in this apartment building, and it just gets sillier and goofier, and then by the end it's like the killer's some sort of weird silly clown that they've just caught, that isn't scary or terrifying or anything. He's just nobody. But maybe that's what they were going for. It just feels weird to have the film unfold in the end like this, but I did like that, because I do like Kevin Kline. I do like the zany comedy and humor he brings to a movie, so I kind of liked it, but it just doesn't really work for the overall film. The only real issues with the movie is that there's certain things that they just touch on, like the relationship between Nick and Susan Sarandon's character. They never really establish what's going on. They just touch on that there was something between them, and that things went bad with them that affected his relationship with his brother, played by Harvey Keitel. But they never really establish what that was. They hint at corruption, but they never really completely talk about that or bring that out to the open. It's all very subtle. It's like this subplot, all these tiny little subplots that are more about the character than anything, but they don't really address them in the way I think they should. Just so many little things that I wish that would sort of open up on a bit more. And like I said, tonally it's a bit odd, and that's a little issue at times, but I still kind of like it. And the other part I didn't overly had a little issue with is it just kind of ends. Nothing's sort of completely concluded or anything like that. It just kind of ends, leaving you with many more questions than I really think it should have. It should have answered things. Not saying every single film has to have a complete and perfect ending that explains everything and all the characters come back, but with movies like this, when they've expressed or touched on particular things, then it really needs to be addressed before the conclusion of the film. And it just kind of ends, and I just wish there was a little bit more. In the end, besides an odd tone, a very interesting film. It's very funny, entertaining. It draws you in with really great characters that are very colourful and over the top at times. A solid story, and I think Norman Jewison does a solid job directing this film. In the end, you're either going to like this or hate it. They are the only two options with the film. I'm going to give January Man 3.5 out of 5. I thought it's a very solid and entertaining movie. It has some good moments, a lot of great humour, and some really good performances. And I like it mostly because it's a sort of zany, wacky film. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom and follow me on Letterboxd and Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.